why that is. The paper boy don't come no more.
Why do some photographers go to the street and other photographers go to a studio? Some people want to pretend it's a movie, and other photographers walk into the world and they say, show me.
They don't burn,
Those select few through time who are willing to go out into chaos with some high hopes of interacting with a moment where life will become clarified for them. They can welcome ambiguity and the surreal aspects of this kind of chaos. Even though it's chaos, they will have a moment of clarification. I was an art director, and Robert Frank shot this job for me. It was so interesting. I had never seen a real photographer work. He just was so physical, and he moved so agilely, and he was balletic, and he kind of whispered to the girls as he was photographing them. And I left that shoot 2 hours later, and I went out on the street, and suddenly everything on the street was alive to me. Someone waving for a taxi, two people hugging goodbye. And I started saying click, click, click in my mind. And by the time I got back to my office, I knew I had to leave. And I walked into my office, the art director said, how'd the shoot go? And I said, it was great, I'm quitting. And he said, why? What are you gonna do? And I said, I want to be a photographer. And I remember he asked me the crucial question. He said, do you have a camera? I said, no, I don't have a camera. He said, Schmuck, how are you going to make pictures if you don't have a camera? He said, opened his drawer, and he handed me his camera, a Pentax, and he said, here, use this until you get a camera. So that, for me, was the beginning. I wandered the streets not knowing what I was shooting. I just knew I had to be out there watching life because I was interested in the way people did things. It seemed to me that's what you photographed, the instantaneous gesture when somebody made some kind of emotion or did something physical. I think that part of what you love when you're a street photographer is this kind of sensibility that develops where you think you understand something about not only the person you're photographing or the group you're photographing, but the culture at large. Responding to things, and at the same time, you're learning what they mean to you. What does a gesture signify? What does a certain kind of person make you feel like? You learn to deepen your way of reading these signs. It's the joy of the exchange. Only I can identify with them in this way. So it's a way of learning to read your culture, which is, I think, a great fascination for photographers.
I carry my camera with me, at least one camera with me, all times. Because you know, you never know when something's gonna happen. It's like a samurai buff, you know, you don't have time to think, you just react. I was born and raised in Belgrade, Serbia. It was amazing, you know, because we grew up in a perfectly safe society. Then all of a sudden it just became terrible. All of a sudden we had war going on all around. People were coming back from the front lines, half insane. A lot of weapons, you know, crime was on the rise. I think I started to take pictures in the midst of that insanity, of that chaos and sanctions. Basically try to preserve my sanity, you know, because when you're behind the camera, you're not a participant, you're just an observer. In 2003, I started shooting these junkies and gangsters in Bushwick, Bed-Stuy. What can they do to me, you know? They can kill me, so what? Yeah. You know, I remember a couple of times I was in some scary situations and my hands would shake when I would change the roll. My hands were shaking, literally. But then when I would start shooting, no, like still, like wolves, you know, they can sense when you fear, and you can't fake that. It's like, okay, she's sitting on a toilet, shooting up, and I'm standing on a bathtub taking pictures, and I'm fine. You know, it's like cold, no feelings. For me, it's becoming what you're shooting. You have to get into their heads. My accent, I think, helps. Because, you know, I don't sound like anyone they hate. And then, in a way, we developed some kind of relationship. Of course, I was offered crack many times. This one guy who was like, hey, man, hey, Book, you want some crack? I'm like, hey, man, no, I have addictive personality. I don't want to do it. He's like, but crack is not addictive. I'm like, come on, man, shut up, look at you. He's like, yeah, you're right, man. I'm sorry. Gang kids, they asked me, hey, Boogie, would you like to take some pictures of us with guns? And I just couldn't believe it was happening. I'm like, yeah. And then we're in a hallway of the project, loaded guns, bam, bam. And it wasn't just about taking pictures at that point, it was just about being there. You know, there's like this thing like there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. What are those lines? You know, the deeper you go, the better pictures you'll take. You know, it becomes like the most important thing in your life. And it can ultimately fuck you up, you know, destroy your life. I thought I would continue the project in some way, but it was just so depressing. I would go there and I couldn't recover for a week. Just the chapter was closed. It was over. After the book was done, I gave it to some people over there. They loved it. I think they feel like they're leaving something behind. Same thing photographers do, you know? You feel better knowing that, I don't know, in how many years you won't be around, but your book will still be in some bookstore and someone will look at it. And then, you know, you feel like you become immortal in a way.
People with cameras who want to photograph New York and do it some kind of a justice have a problem. Here is a city where everything happens, almost it seems, at once. Noise, movement, combustion, energy, dissonance, danger.
They had a barrier on the other side.
New York photographers have to take all those matters into account to do some kind of record that encompasses a human setting and a cluster of variables that defy imagination. So it was no wonder that a number of photographers grew up taking advantage of this, what I call volatile proximity of citizens to each other. It seems one will never catch up if one does this in New York. And that's what advances the motivations of everyone who tries it.
When I first moved to New York, which was in 1975, I got a job with the New York Post. And of course we were shooting film. And I had 2 cameras, and both cameras were loaded, so I often had a lot of film left over. It just became my habit at the end of the day to cruise through Alphabet City on my way back to the Post. The Lower East Side at the time was a complete, like, bombed out war zone. You know, vast, empty areas and vacant lots. What I learned when I was studying anthropology was definitely the point of view I had when I was taking pictures in New York, which is sort of an ethnographic point of view as opposed to trying to be an artist. I'm not trying to do a kind of investigative reporting where I'm showing the evils of landlords, for example. I'm more about public space and how people are using the space and how people are surviving and how they're using the raw materials that become available when all these buildings are torn down to maybe build a little go-kart or build a little clubhouse. And that was the sort of thing I was looking for. Anything that's ephemeral is like wonderful subject matter for a still photograph. You know it's not going to be around for long, and in just less than a second you can take a picture and preserve it. One of the kids that had been flying pigeons showed me his little book of drawings, and that's how I got into graffiti. There were a handful of people taking pictures of graffiti. And if we hadn't been, well, then a lot of it would have been lost. Looks as if every car was covered with this beautiful graffiti, but in fact, you could go and stand for 5 hours and never even get one. It was not easy to catch those trains. I mean, I would wake up before dawn in the winter when it was cold and go up to the Bronx and stand in a vacant lot for hours just waiting for the train to come by, and sometimes nothing would come by, and I used to get calls, you know, yo, Martha, we did a piece on the whatever.
This is Lask. I bust out a rooftop on the 6th line, bright colors, last blockbuster is fresh, done by Vice Boys, you know the crew.
For me, it was always a matter of getting the right background with the right train. I don't want to see 10 pictures of trains with the same background. So if you look at subway art, you won't see the same background, because once I got a really nice piece with a really nice background, I would go find another background, stand in another vacant lot. Bottom line is, you've captured something that actually might be of interest in the future. And it's not until things are gone that you realize that you missed taking a picture of them.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Jesus. Hard-ons, aren't they? Bunch of hard-ons.
If you are a photographer, or you are videotaping, you have the right to do so. Within a reasonable distance of the police. If the police ask you to move back, move back. As little as possible.
You're interested see.
I need to.
Well, you know, I have an exhibition of photographs on now.
Really? Where is it?
On Madison Avenue, between 65th and 66th.
Madison 65th and 66th.
The show is called Street Cops.
Street Cops.
And it's from a book I did that came out in '81. 9th Precinct, Midtown South. 30 years ago when there were real cops. I have never seen a book about good cops. I have seen books about the bums, the crooks, the creeps. I've also seen all the bad behavior. I have never seen a book about a good cop, and certainly not photographs, and certainly not showing what is the job. Simply, what does it mean to be a cop in New York City? Well, in the beginning, I would do a couple double tours. I'd go on the 4 to 12. Do that, or maybe I'd go a little on the midnight, and still managed to miss the one time they had a delivery of a baby. Fell into the woman's pantyhose. That's why I had to be in the first car. If I got there a second later, didn't get the shot. When I was doing the job, everybody didn't have a camera, and I worked on being invisible. Although when I first started, they got some bad guy, some malefactor, and they were cuffing him and put him in the car. And he said, "Get that fucking bitch and that camera away from me." But that's the least of your problems, pal. If they don't do the crime, don't get your picture, you know? And shut the fuck up, furthermore.
But I could not find out.
Yeah, they were afraid of me. I'm a tough mother. Fucking A, they were afraid of me. Both of the perpetrators were cuffed, and there was blood on the floor, a pack of Pall Malls in the blood. And the beator, I suppose, as opposed to the BT, leaned over, came with a table, said, you know, because he wanted to get in the picture. And I was scared most of the time, you know. Well, violence. I want you to, boom, that's it, you're gone. We ran to a thing, the kid was shot in the stomach with a shotgun. The true color of violence, not red like ketchup, gray like dead. And the book was about that. This is not a movie. This is not the TV. It's an honor to be able to make a good photograph of anyone, and it's a great privilege. It's the only tool that will stop time itself. I'd majored in sociology and cultural anthropology, and I thought that all I wanted to do was get out into the world, and I only realized that that's what I was doing with the camera. So by the firemen, again, there was no question that I'm going to run in like do a journalism thing. I wrote in the book, they're like soldiers and they will die for someone else or someone else's property. They're not like soldiers, they do not kill. They bring life, not death. And this is how I proceeded. What I saw was men that really love each other. And usually it's a pity that that only happens in front lines and in combat. And I got to see the genuine affection and the love and the working together and the lack of all this stupid crap. Gentleness, the gentle giant kind of thing. Look at the hand on the head, how tender. And especially a big man being gentle. Oh, just always gets me. they saved this whole family. That they thought the building had been emptied, and one of my guys heard the grandmother crying above the fire floor. So I had to walk away on that one. I was being touched all the time. Mind you, I died before anyone saw me cry. That's how many we lost, 343. Oh, wow. Ah. Oh, wow.
So I moved to New York in 1978, and I guess I brought with me a naivete, unknowingness, a freshness of having grown up on a typical suburban block. So I bring with me a different kind of a sponge. I immediately fell in love with the energy and all that it's made up of. The density of the people and who they are and what they're doing. I like busy streets. I like empty streets. Sometimes I'll see something on the ground and there's no people in it. I'm always looking in storefronts and banks, windows and cafes. And I like going into the whirlwind. I like it all. I really like it all. One of the most exciting things in this kind of photography is the ingredient of surprise. Not only surprise in what your encounter might be in the real world, but what you get back on the film. That's part of the reason why we're excited to get our film. I don't care how many rolls I take of something. To me, that doesn't matter at all. It's not like a contest. Sometimes a picture will happen single, but often it will not happen that way. And clearly I have a memory of the burning shoe. When I saw Burning Shoe, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't have thought about it. I couldn't have thought of it happening. And I was like, how much film do I have? So I had like 3 rolls that day, and I have at least maybe, I don't know, 7 frames. You know, they're gonna vary. This has a particular pedestrian, a particular amount of smoke and distance. I really worked the shoot. Some people think my pictures are funny. I didn't realize that. And that makes me excited. It's hard to be funny. I do whatever I can to help me take my next picture. If I just sniff something that way, I'll go that way. And it's totally instinctual. And so like when I'm out there, I could just do whatever. It's not really a casual thing. It's pushing my intuition in such a way that might relate to a jazz musician. And I'm not musical at all, but it must relate somehow to that process of creativity. I know how much film or time it takes to make an interesting photograph. There is a luck, but I believe it was Helen Levitt that said that you create your luck. And there's a lot of work involved in creating luck.
Helen Levitt was a diminutive woman walking with a small miniature camera, able to conceal her activities because of her modest presence and agile movement. The work she produced is figured in our imaginative memories of New York because of both the warmth and the pathos of the sightings she made of children and immigrants and poor people and communities, all hugger-mugger together in a kind of exquisite concord. Lisette Modell, she had a Rolleiflex where she'd have to look down into the viewfinder. The result was many of her figures seemed to loom enormously and prodigiously on the horizon, above which there loomed these enormous skyscrapers. She made these figures incredibly monumental, impending, sinister sometimes, morbid, and unforgettable. The phenomenon of Diane Arbus, so memorable in our understanding of the photographic past in New York, very unique, unrepeatable, idiosyncratic in the extreme in her idea that the banality of everyday existence was in fact a possible source of horror and perversion. Arbus upturned, pulled a rug from our notions that everything was really going along as it should. There was a kind of subliminal freakishness in many of the characters she photographed. After Arbus, New York photography would never remain the same.
Nobody really thought about style in photography for much of the 19th century, and it's not until the late 1880s, really, you get to Stieglitz and Emerson and various other people in Britain as well as the United States. This trickles down to art photography, all the magazines, and soon you have dentists in Syosset taking pictures of trees at sunset that look Japanese. And then, meanwhile, there's been this great documentary photography that passed unnoticed at the time. And there were a lot of these, sort of citizen photographers. Also, I think of the Photo League, that great institution, some of whom made interesting pictures by accident and some of whom were like, real artists.
I saw an article in, I think it was PM, about the Photo League and their workshops, and there was a little photo on there, And I said, the philosophy they have is it's just what I'm doing by myself, photographing the way people lived, where they lived, how they lived, what they were doing, how you see the way they lived, It was having to do with humanity. I went to visit them, and I ended up signing up for one of the advanced class. Dance must have helped me. We used to study choreography. The space had a lot to do with dance. The space you're making and the space where you're standing on the stage, She just moved the space of the stage onto the street, you know. The camera's supposed to make a document of how things are. You know, how people looked maybe in 1950, you know, with their Stetson hats, you know, and the kerchiefs, or how their dresses looked, or how the tenements looked. Just kept for years taking photographs of the Lower East Side. You know, during the glory of the Photo League, there's so many of the famous photographers used to come down and spend time talking and meeting people. Yeah, I wonder if the Photo League didn't get busted out, how they would be. It was labeled un-American. And if the FBI was around and they got a list, you know, they could really grab you. People really stopped coming because they were fearful. It just folded up. We never talked about communism or anything, but they were always kept an eye on us because they felt we were close to the philosophy of the working people, of the poor people.
Relax. What's that telling them? They're saying that we're garbage, and that's we are citizens of the United States. Thank you.
What are you going to do with these films that you're making?
Oh, I don't know. Hopefully they'll be important someday, right?
Yeah, you never know, you know?
Hopefully you'll be important someday, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like one of the only places where I could fit in was New York. And I'm from Western Canada, which is very provincial, very conservative, very sort of like, you know, backward in its own way. I don't know whether you want to call it ego or ambition or whatever, but yeah, I thought that this, you know, I wanted to swim in the biggest pool. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to jump into the deep end. So I ended up coming over here to Lower East Side. And Lower East Side was sort of like perfect. I mean, at that time it was like, you know, dangerous and drugs. But it had like a class of people who I could easily identify with. And so that made it really sort of comfortable to be around, and also there was this whole kind of energy over here that was, you know, sort of wild and free and outlawish and all of that, and I found that to be very comfortable. The one thing I did consistently and all the time in terms of the street was photograph people in front of my door. But by photographing in front of my door and then putting the pictures in the window and making these people famous, I eventually photographed the whole neighborhood, from 14th Street to the Brooklyn Bridge, which is huge. A lot of the people that are in the pictures are the people that are on the streets. A lot of the drug sellers, you know, the gangs, the bad guys, the good guys. So a lot of times I would just do little tricks, like instead of saying cheese, I would say pussy. And of course, most guys will smile or laugh when you say that. And then so you've sort of captured them, you know, smiling. And when you see them, they just look like good, normal kids. Our people, they just look like regular people. It's not about you as an individual. It's about you as a community. So I think of my photography in multiple ways. I think of it as keeping things for the future and sort of preserving this moment now for then. I think of it as an activist tool. I think of it as something that can give you access to places where you could never be before. The Tompkins Square Park police riot. That was August 6th, 7th, 1988, where a number of people were there and had videos and photographs, but there was sparse and few. Whereas I ended up with a 3-hour and 33-minute tape, which kind of like laid out the whole night. It really created a major amount of press and noise. So pretty soon I was on every TV station, including Oprah and CNN and New York Times, all of them.
A man who went to jail rather than give police the videotape he made of a demonstration turned riot.
It was a police riot.
That was the first time that the handheld video camera like that had ever been used as a protest tool and as an activist tool against, you know, government wrongdoing. It was that egalitarian factor that you didn't have to be like this, you know, have to gone to Harvard and learned out, you know, art history. It wasn't really like that. And I think in a certain level, too, I think because of what I photographed, a lot of what I'd done, some of it appears to be antisocial because it was like conflicts with the police and like that, and I got cops in trouble for doing it. But in reality, it's not that it's antisocial, it's interested in the social factor that most people try to overlook. And I think if one is going to spend their time doing something, you want to try to make it to be important. You want to make it significant. And that's part of the reason of coming to New York. Why did I come to New York? Because I wanted to have what I did to become relevant and significant.
I get the feeling that there are too many bad pictures in the world, but there's always room for good ones, because good ones illuminate, entertain, amuse, make people feel, instruct, do all good things. Give you some kind of an emotion, positive or negative or something. It just can't lie flat. It has to speak to you in some way. It has to make you laugh or cry or something in between. And if it doesn't do that, then it's not very interesting. The picture has to communicate, otherwise there's no point. I've taken quite a few pictures already, so sometimes you see the same thing that you've seen before and then you just don't do it. And as I shoot film and not digital, taking pictures is a process. I mean, you take the picture, you got to develop it, you got to make a contact, you got to make prints and so forth. I do everything in-house. My darkroom is downstairs. I've always had a darkroom since I was 15 years old. It's not like with a digital camera where you have an instant result. Digital manipulation kills photography. I think that's the unfortunate thing about digital. It's made it too easy, and everybody can get an image, just that not everybody can get a good one. There's not much optimism with my colleagues. Things are tough. Film certainly will become obsolete. The question is when. The internet has not helped. People want to use stuff for nothing. Requirements are really quite base. You don't really need photographers anymore for so many things. You can just get stock and make your own picture. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you get a picture.
Photography is a democratic medium. Anybody can use it. But digital photography and the web have made it truly the democratic, worldwide, universal medium. Everybody's a photographer now. And we're going to find geniuses. Geniuses are going to be awakened by this opportunity to make pictures with their cell phone or their camera, because they're going to see the results of it right away. And they're going to say, oh, this fascinates me. I can say something. But the work they make is going to look very much like what the digital world is, where we are today. It's going to be very contemporary. And I mean, sure, there's a lot of crap everywhere. We know that. But I think there's also genius waiting to be discovered.
I used to think every time I pressed the shutter, it was 50 cents. And that click, 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 that could add up really quickly with the film and the developing. But now, it doesn't add up click, click, click. So that's, you know, there's no reason not to just shoot everything.
No, I don't own digital camera. I shoot film only. With film, you keep pushing yourself, and I think the result, because you don't know what you have, you might get something better. You might have some better results.
I don't have Photoshop. And I don't really like computers. I like email, I like Google. That's about it. It's too precise. I get very, very, very scared. So scared. I could never buy enough external hard drives to back me up. You see how I am. I mean, my whole house would have to be an external. And then I'd have to get another house to back up the house. It would never end. No, I'm just crazy about my, you know, my work. You know, you couldn't back it up. I'm sure you could, but it's very hard for me.
Picture's a picture. What does it matter what tool you use? I think it's ludicrous and ridiculous people carrying on about that. It doesn't matter how you get the picture, it's the picture.
Change is so inevitable, you know. What are all these cameras out there photographing? What don't they take? Will there be anybody who's going to be using the photography the way it used to be as time goes on? I just think about that, you know.
I was 10 years old, and a friend of mine came by, Sammy Nichols, and he said, "You want to see developing in my basement?" And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Come along." So I went with Sammy into this dark, dank basement with a ruby light, and exposed something, and an image appeared. And that really affected me. And I ran home to my mother and said, "Can I have a dark room?" I lived like a monk. I had a mattress on the floor, a dying Chiffonera plant, a darkroom kitchen combination where I could eat frozen Hershey bars and chicken while I printed. All I wanted to do was take pictures. I didn't care about anything else. It's easy to penetrate someone's privacy. It's about privacy. And I've tried in my work to make contact, to offer pictures. And even in the Brooklyn Gang, I would give them pictures. And it was a way of seeing them, and a way of them seeing me. And so I was able to be invisible almost to them because they were secure with me being around with my camera. But I would hand them a picture, not only a picture of themselves, but a picture of something else that I did, to let them see there's an outside world. And it was part of the bonding, because they were very depressed, and they were very angry, and they were very poor, and there was nothing for them in that community. I was angry too, you know, but I had a possibility. You know, I had a job. You know, I had a life. They didn't. 100th Street was considered the worst block in the city. I'd worked on 100th Street in a large format 4x5 Linhof camera. It was classic. You know, I was a real photographer because I went under a black cloth. I fumbled around. The pose was beautiful. Dignity. It would bring a dignity to the act of photography. If I walked around in there with my little Leica or Nikon or Canon or whatever, boo, 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 you know, it's too thin. It's too thin. Because with 4x5, you have to know what the picture is. So that you become kind of collaborative with your subject. Time was suspended. It wasn't the decisive moment. It wasn't a moment in tension, fluid, like the gang pictures. It was different for me. You know, it was a different experience. The subway in the late 70s, early 80s was deplorable. Everybody hated riding the subway. It's unsafe, it never ran right, it's full of graffiti, all kinds of things. Dirty. I read a lot of young boys' books on tiger hunts, and I scheduled the way I would be on a subway the same way a tiger hunter would walk across a field. Tigers always attack from the rear. So I was always aware that I might be attacked from the rear on the subway. And actually, I was. I became addicted to the subway. When I heard the rumble of the train below our bedroom window, I jumped up like a werewolf. Sometimes I would go in the subway at 1 or 2 in the morning and stay until dawn. I was starting to get a little crazy with it, you know. Normally, I had the camera out, because you can't approach people and say, I'd like to take your picture and reach into your back pocket. And if someone hesitated, I had an album with me, a 5x7, a wedding album, gold trim with a sample of my work in it. It's a wedding between me and my subject. Also, the subway was sexy. You know, I had little love affairs for 10 seconds with women on the train, you know, and never see them again. It was Beauty and the Beast, but sometimes the Beast was beautiful. That happens a lot with various bodies of work of mine where people are glad you're there to see them because no one's paying attention.
I don't expect everyone to be like me, thank God. If you had 42 Bruce Gildens running around, Jesus Christ, there'd probably be a ban against photography. No one would be allowed to take street pictures on the streets of New York. You know, I'm basically what's known as a street photographer. And when I was growing up in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, I used to look out my second-story window at the vigorous street life down below, and I was hooked. And also television had a lot to do, you know, because I like film noir and I like shadows. There are times someone will go out with me, you know, like I'm just with somebody, and I'll say, "It is a person for you," and I'll say, "No, they're too," I won't use the word stylish, but they're dressed too neatly. You know, they look like they are a character, and they're not. You know, the hat is too neat, everything is too much like they're programmed, okay? It's not like they're a character. Just something catches me. There's something striking in there. And I don't mean a vulgarity type of striking. I mean just as a detail. It's something that it just works. You know, they're a little bit more extreme, or some of these people I've made more extreme. You know, they're just average people. But there's something I see in them that attracts me, that makes me want to photograph them. I realized I had to really jump in people's faces to isolate them. to separate the foreground from the background. Flash helps me visualize my feelings of the city because it shows the stress, the energy, the speed, and the anxiety of the people. You know, you can't photograph everybody, you can't photograph every situation, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I feel almost like I'm a director out there. I am the director, and sometimes if I see something and the person turns the other way, I say to myself, oh shit, he doesn't take direction well. You know, this thing about invisibility, I mean, I think people overdo it. Yeah, when you have a little camera, you become a sneak. You know, so it becomes a different, the rules change of the game, okay? You know, you can be invisible and be very close, because sometimes I work so close that people don't realize I'm taking their picture. They look behind them, you know, to see, like, who they take a picture of. What happened with this picture was, I was taking the picture because I like she's wearing a bra and panties on the beach. And then someone came over and said, what is he taking a picture of? And she went, over there. Picture here, this was quite interesting for me because I saw that and I wanted to take a picture of his face because, you know, part of his jaw is like missing, okay, here. So I went over and I had a conversation with him. And then I asked him, I said, can I take a picture up close of your face? He said, yeah, sure. You know, with his beautiful flowing hair. I wish I had his hair, not his chin. But the thing is, with his hair, I mean, he's like a beautiful bird for me. So, you know, people in my pictures aren't these people. People in my pictures are symbols for what I see. And it's how I express what the world is. I don't think the world is an excellent place. You know, I'm comfortable doing what I do because I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. You know, I don't let people bully me or intimidate me, okay? So I'm not some pushover out there. And if you look in my eyes, you know, you'll see that I'm not a normal guy sometimes. I've done some pretty wild things out there.
When you speak of William Klein, you speak of a bad boy, kind of renegade in the history of photographic practices. When he came to New York in the 1950s, it was as if he had a score to settle, so that there's this strange dissonant mixture of familiarity and distancing that goes on in William Klein's view of New York that epitomized both the bitterness of his recognitions in the city and at the same time his affection for them. Robert Frank produced for us an album of the city, the exact opposite of the cheerful, gregarious multitudes from which the city had been celebrated in many other photo campaigns. His New York, on the contrary, was a patchwork of subcultures and wary glances. All of this comes through works of great power that add to the mythos of the city as a place you have to watch your step in.
People see me aiming at a certain direction, they might think I'm taking their picture, and if they're not liking that, they're not going to like that. And it has been a problem more than once.
Certain rangefinders are magnificent weapons There's no mirror to get bounced around, and if you wrap the strap tightly and go like that, sideways, they don't mess with you too much.
But I have to start exercising because, you know, I don't know. I want to feel able to defend myself.
I don't go out with a lot of equipment, but I don't hide the equipment either. I go out with a worn old camera bag, and I just try to be street savvy, that's all.
I got locked in a train once with some graffiti kids. They're very special keys, and locked me in so nobody could get at us, and then they scribbled all over the place. So they were little kids from Yonkers, white kids.
You want to break it up? You want to break it up? Have one. Fuck out of here. You have to display it if you have it. What's your problem?
They kept on trying to push me off the block, and I didn't want to hear about it, so eventually it got into a confrontation, and then I got beaten up by the cops, and I was covered in blood, my shirt was ripped, I got a couple of teeth knocked out.
There was a guy that's, you know, I don't know, so this is 10 years ago, and a tough guy. You know, shaved heads, deep scars in his head, you know, a toughie. So I said, ah, fuck it, I'll take his picture anyway. So I took his picture, and he came over to me, and he said, you do that again, he says, I'll fucking, and I didn't say a word, because he could have fucking taken me and threw me through the window.
But this all seems quaint and archaic now because our definitions of the public and the private sphere have been entirely altered by new technologies and new social attitudes. We're all exhibitionists or people who would like to be noticed, however briefly, by electronic means. So the idea of someone objecting to having a camera poked in their face is obsolete.
Introduce myself. My name is Ricky Tower. Oh shit! Well, thank you, man. That's very nice of you. But I'm usually used to getting discs, like I'm a bike messenger at home. Yo, who the fuck is this guy? I listen to the Blues Hour on Jazz 88 every day, 3 o'clock. Gotta have soundtrack as I walk through the streets. My neighborhood has been infested by New Jack cornballs, so this helps me freeze them out. Yeah, well, I've been living here 20 years on Charles Street, but I grew up in the Village. I met this weird, arty, crazy dressed girl at Danceteria. We hit it off. So then we go to like Roxy's and Danceteria and all the clubs, and she'd bring her little Shure Shot, a Minolta autofocus, Highmatic. I took to it like easy, naturally, knack. But I never took it seriously. It was just something I did with her. Spring of '85, she dissed me for some fucking scrub who wore tie-dye yoga pants. I was I'm gonna make this bitch sorry. She played me like a soggy cannoli. I'm gonna take this camera, and I'm gonna fucking become something where she fucking is gonna be mad sorry she dissed me like this. Spring of '85, early, like March, I declared I'm gonna take pictures. I'm gonna take pictures. Yeah, I've been a messenger, substitute school teacher, frozen lemonade vendor, tour photographer. had my share of bullshit jobs, you know, but I always would bring a camera with me to battle the mundaneness of the job. This I took in the summer of '86 from my frozen lemonade stand. And I like this shot because the dog is running shit. And I got a famous shot of Cindy Crawford I took at the club MK. I was a busboy. I went into the women's bathroom to clean up. I turn around and I see this chick, I'm like, oh shit, yo, you mind if I get a flick? I guess my magnetism overtook her. That's in the toilet stall right there. Debbie Mazar, loved her, man. Lawrence Fishburne, loved Lawrence. I don't know how I used to end up hanging out with him, man. I got some good shots. He liked me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh snap.
Run from Run DMC would come pick me up in his car and we'd drive around.
I'm just doing a photo shoot with Run DMC. Come over here, man. I want to get the nice sundown. It's nice. It's aesthetic.
Hey, and silly as your hairdo. I mean, your hair fucking Adam Harvey in the front.
Don D. White, the graffiti legend. I don't know, I used to hang out with these dudes. Except they knew I was down.
We're in the palace of the rap Svengali, Mr. Russell Simmons.
Alice.
How are you, bud?
Old Mickey.
I love the way you've, dressed for today's interview.
My most well-known photo, probably Warhol Basquiat. Went to Shirazi to see the Warhol Basquiat opening. I meet up with Zephyr and Revolt. They were like a dynamic duo of graffiti. I used to just be like on their jock. And then we noticed Warhol and Basquiat coming from Houston Street. And I was just like, hey, you mind if I get a quick flick? Or some shit, I don't know. And they looked at me. Basquiat seen me around. He was always nice to me. They stopped for me, posed, took the shot. I said, thanks, man. So I had just shot 2 great dynamic duos in the same minute at the onset of my career, career. And hustling is actually my main occupation, hustling. That's what it is, man. Waking up, making sure you wake up in the daytime, putting your pants on, making the calls, getting out of the house, maneuvering. And, I don't take those for granted. I have to be prepared because even a dope shot might arise, even when I just go to the deli, and it happens. Street photography to me is like my transistor radio. The playlist is infinite. There was no reason I shouldn't have a camera, because all I had to do was this. And if you can't do this, if this is too much, then, I was in the wrong business.
I find it very difficult to take a photograph without a person knowing. Occasionally I will, but it's still something magical about being able to approach a stranger and convince him that you are sincere. In 1977, I joined the military. And I said to myself, when I return back to the States, I will never be without images. I returned during the summer of 1980, and I came on a mission to just shoot and recapture different stages of my life. So I was with a camera every single day from that point to this very day. When I was downtown Brooklyn photographing the posses, the crews, I realized the psychology of photography for me. You see that alpha, and I would study my subjects first, because being a military man, we learn the science of reconnaissance and recognizing, leadership. So I would see that alpha male or female. I was studying for a few, and I knew that I had to approach him first in order to get the permission to shoot everybody else. And the alphas are normally the male who has the jewelry on, you know, he's distinguishable, and I would compliment him. But that was in psychology also, to compliment myself just and say, you know what, I'm looking at you and I recognize power and strength, and I can tell that you are a very powerful person. He says, you know what, yeah, I am. So I would photograph him and go get it blown up and bring it back to him, and he would show all his people and say, yo, look at this. So then they would all want photographs. They gave me the name Picture Man, and I was just there. I left at the age of 17 to go into the military. I came home at 20. So a lot of things I wasn't exposed to, you know, during my youth, but when I returned, I saw prostitution and homelessness for the first time. And whatever reason, I wanted to capture it. So I would go out there and I would just not only take photographs, but I was really curious on why these women became homeless and try to get them off the street at the age of 20 years old. So in a sense, I became a street teacher, and I had a reason behind what I was doing. And it was dangerous in the beginning. And I saw a prostitute performing a sex act on a religious figure, and I shot it without asking. And she started screaming, and the customer ran off without paying her. So her screams summons her security, her pimp. And I had said to them, you know, with all due respect, before you attack me, let me at least explain what I did and why I did it. And in my explanation, you know, the person, he says, you know what, I respect you. And he says, from this point on, you have my permission to come out here anytime and shoot. He says, only thing, you know, you just have to do in the future is ask. So what that did for me at that time, it taught me the importance of asking. And I was criticized for that as time would go on, because people would say that my work is too posed. But what it was with me, I would ask, you know, with all due respect, you know, my name is Jamel Shabazz, may I take a photograph of you? The smile was a reflection of what I gave them. So when I look at the smiles that I see in my photographs, I created an atmosphere which made them feel good. And then that makes me feel good to know that I was able to do that.
I was born in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I can remember when I was 8 years old walking home from like 3rd grade and saying, I gotta get out of here. And I stayed with that, and I really always thought about my freedom, and I always thought about moving to New York, even when I was a child. When I first came to New York, I would go to the parks, to Central Park, and I would also, which I still do, try and find out when there are events, shoot around them, not necessarily the parade itself. I still love the street, and I still go out on the street. It's a challenge to work on the street. The hardest photography to do is street photography, actually, because you have to really think on your feet. You know, you go down the street and you turn right, and something amazing happens. You don't make that turn, you turn left, and nothing happens. You have to make a picture in that very moment, and I'm old school in the sense, well, I'm an analog photographer, but I'm old school in the sense that I don't believe in cropping, that I believe you have to make the picture in the camera. It's harder to be a woman than a man. I'm definitely admit that. The disadvantages came more with business, with people, you know, not maybe wanting to assign you as much in the beginning, but also the disadvantage of strength, just physical strength. But I think there's also an advantage to being a female if you're a street photographer, because I can walk down the street and I can knock on a door and someone will let me in. I'm less threatening than a man. I think often your subject matter can show you what the picture is, makes it for you. So I'm not a strong believer in heavy-duty concepts when I do portraits of people. I sort of like it to come from the people. I try and make iconic images. They're hard to make, but that's my goal, is to make images that stand on their own, not to tell a particular story. I think film tells a story, you know. Still pictures should be single, very powerful images. I don't know whether my pictures cause social change. I think maybe they make people aware, and I think it's important for people to be aware. I think today the fine art world, at this moment, does not really appreciate reality or documentary work. And I think it's too bad, because for me, that's the work I collect, and that's the work I love, and that was my choice of a career. I love, you know, photographs about humans, or animals. I love animals too, but you know, or humans and animals. The art world, you know, they're always thinking in terms of decoration, and those kind of strong images aren't as decorative. There's so many great documentary photographers, and we're not having the opportunity to see their work, and I think that's very sad. You know, because my favorite photographs, and I think historically the pictures that I love, are the photographs that are about reality.
Street photography is really not what people are talking about. You know, it's a little retro. So to maintain that enthusiasm is difficult. There's less of us that will take 35mm street photographs, you know, their whole life. As I've become older, I feel more in touch with the importance of what I and others like I am doing, and that is rendering the human condition, showing the world and life as it is. Us picture makers are responsible for doing that in an honest and way that is unique to our own selves to make a contribution. I'm recording life now my way.
I think this might be the first roll I ever shot right here. And indeed it is. Indeed it is, 1966. Right out into the street. Well, there's pictures everywhere, my God, if you're in the mood. You know, it's like if you're in a bad mood, everybody on the bus looks like a maniac, you know, or a terrible freak or a moron. And when you're in a good mood and you can't help it, you smile at someone. What, they're surprised they smile back? Like every picture has to say, only in New York.
Sometimes I leave my house, and by the time I reach Manhattan, I would shoot 3 rolls. Because there's always, stuff is always changing. There's always something new. Light is different. People are different. You know, I'm just trying to show things as they are, you know, without bullshit, without judging people. I mean, I'm more and more excited about what I do. I shoot more and more. Because I think I have, you know, less time left on this planet, I guess.
A street can be like a nerve ending. It's not the street, it's the life on the street or where the street takes you. That's important. It's out there, you know. I'll go on. I'm just trying to get it right. Still trying to get it right.
Photography is about description. It just describes things. That's all the camera does. You point it, you press the button, it describes what's in front of it. Something happens, some personal thing happens. Even though it's a machine and even though it uses a fraction of a second of time, we learn as human beings how to understand those minute little exchanges. And I'm much happier being out on the street, mixing it up with the chance quality of things potentially appearing out of ordinary reality. A slice of a moment. A thousandth of a second of recognition. And if you can accept that, then you can operate that way. There are plenty of people who don't have that kind of belief that the world's going to present itself in that way, and so they don't see it because they're not looking for it.
New York, I love you. Oh, New York, you're my city of dreams. It's a city of schemes. Sometimes it's a city of screams. But I love you like a lady. Like a woman, and you're an expensive lady, and it ain't really right, but there's something about the way you look tonight. Ooh, I love you, New York. I never wanna leave. I never wanna leave you. 'Cause I love you, and I need you. I love. Yeah, from all the way up there in Washington Heights, way down to Staten Island, man. New York City, you're alright. Oh yeah. The best. I love you, New York. Oh, New York. New York. I love you. Now you're changing right in front of my eyes. And some people, they're talking about your demise. They say it's gonna fall apart. I don't know about that. All I know, New York, oh baby, you are just where it's at. And that's that. And that's that. And that's that. I love you, New York. Now, worlds, don't be jealous. I love you too. And I love you, Cam. This is a song about New York. I love you, New York. I ain't never gonna leave you. My son. You're so beautiful. So romancing.